I hope you're all excited for what will be, I think, a pretty spicy conversation. We're here to talk about competitive moats, and short story, when I told my wife I was leading a panel on competitive moats, I think I enunciated poorly because she looked at me funny and she's like, you mean like Fortnite flossing competitions? I'm like, no, not emotes. We're talking about M-O-A-T, castle moats. And in 2026, at a time where intelligence is becoming ubiquitous, the definition of building a durable moat is changing. This is a hot debate right now. I think pick your favorite tech podcast. They're talking about terminal value. They're talking about AI reducing competitive moats. So today, we're here to dig into that with these 4 startup leaders. I'll be your host. I'm Scott Barneson. I lead the startups business for North America at Google. Next to me is Simon Eskildsen, CEO, co-founder of TurboPuffer. TurboPuffer is a storage-native company building enabling high-scale AI applications while maintaining economics at the largest scale possible. They're also building the world's most popular Lego set at the moment, which you can find at their booth. Michele Catasta is the president and head of AI at Replit. Many of you probably use and know Replit, the software platform where millions of developers and now AI agents go from idea to live software in minutes. So Replit's sitting at the center of this creation loop of coding to development. Felipe Moreno, CEO of Just Brazil, one of the most important legal technology platforms in Brazil, which happens to be one of the most complex legal environments in the world. So they're helping professionals and institutions navigate those challenges. They've turned trust, regulation, and local workflow depth into a durable advantage. And last is Madhav, co-founder and CTO of Emergent. Emergent is focused on building a model-resilient AI system that continues to win as these frontier models evolve. I think today probably something new is launched. Tomorrow it will be something else, but this is a very difficult challenge. All right, so I think what makes this panel unique, as you hear about their backgrounds, these are not 4 companies of the same flavor. They're attacking this from very different perspectives. So we're going to get into, in this new universe, how do you build value that compounds over time? So, first spicy topic. What do founders still get wrong? All right, quick pulse check in the audience. How many of you still believe that proprietary prompts are defensible? One guy in the back, get him! No, I'm kidding, nobody raised their hand. So let's challenge some assumptions. This was a moat people thought maybe a couple years ago. You could build the super cool secret prompt and you'd have a company. There's probably new things now in 2026 that aren't really moats. People might be getting wrong. So I'm going to start with you, Simon. I hear a lot about latency, model performance. Why do you think this might not be the right place to focus?
So for us, we build a search engine, and in the beginning, I think we were probably like a pretty slow search engine, and that turned out to be fine because people were using seconds and seconds on the LLM responses, and so spending 100 milliseconds doing the search was completely fine when we could cut the cost by an order of magnitude, sometimes 2 orders of magnitude, which allowed them to search a lot more data. So I think often people get very in the weeds about performance because it's a very, very easy metric to look at and compare yourself to others, but it's generally not what people care about. Lots of things, and performance may or may not be one of those things. So I think we chose something different to focus on.
So if I poke at that a little more, there is a universe where you would say, focus on the things that will always be true. And people will always want things to be faster. So what is it about this point in time that's not necessarily where you need to be focused?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Now, TurboPuffer is one of the fastest search engines on the planet. But in the beginning, it was not what mattered the most. I think people want to see a trend in a particular direction, right? They want to see that something gets faster over time. But I think a lot of times at least when I buy software, I care more about what's the trend of this and like how frequent are the points on the x-axis of this trend, then I care about what this point in time is. If the theoretical floor of where it goes there faster. Yep. So as long as it's a company that's focused on that and very honest about where they are on the trend line and what they care about, I think you can do well.
Nice. I like it. All right, Michele, let's go straight to the wrapper debate. Not the like Drake the rapper. We're talking about WRAPPER wrappers. Do you think the industry, the founders, are still underestimating this concept of workflow ownership?
I hope not. I mean, otherwise, the spotlight wouldn't be on us and many other companies. I think the wrapper debate was hot, as you said, a couple of years ago, when having a very sophisticated prompts maybe was enough. I wouldn't say to create an everlasting company, but perhaps to get product market fit pretty quickly. Now, of course, is not the case any longer. And there is a reason why we talk about agent harnesses and not like agentic prompts only. It takes a lot of effort to do research on how to create the best harness for whatever is the goal that they have in mind. It takes a lot of engineering effort to make them scale. It takes a lot of effort to create something like Replit, which is not just an agent, but is the entire platform around it. So I believe the debate on wrappers was hot mostly because there is quite a lot of negative energy in startup world, if I may say. We want to make the panel spicy, so I will I will tell you what I feel. It's easy to be supportive early stage, and then when companies start to grow, we always try to find a reason why they're not gonna make it. The truth is, there is always like an ingredient at the beginning that allows you to get attention and make your initial customers happy, and then like turbo puffer. Then you had time to make it faster, and in our case, we had time to bring a lot of other features around the product to make it last for longer and make it more valuable. So I stopped listening to both journalists and investors talking about wrappers, and I think it's very healthy.
I like it. Felipe, we're going to talk a little bit about data. One of the, again, maybe we went from wrappers and then folks wanted to talk about, hey, I've got sufficient data to build a moat. Why do you see data being insufficient in a regulated market?
That's a really good question, Scott, because we've been on the market for a while now. We are the main legal research tool in Brazil. And when the whole Gen AI revolution started, a lot of people looked at us and asked us if just Brazil was going to lose its job to AI, And first thing that came out of our mouths was like, no, we have the data, right? I mean, we have the data. We kind of like just said that mindlessly for a while. But at some point, we just had to like think about it more deeply. And I think I'll just share like the simplified framework that we use right now to evaluate data moats, because a lot of things are changing, right? So we see 3 dimensions of data moats. You have like the type of data, you have public, you have proprietary, you have client data. You have how easy the data is to get. You have how easy the data is to structure, meaning how easy it is for you to make the data into something searchable, into something that you can reason over. And it was pretty simple, right, back in the day. I mean, public, easy to get, already structured data was not a moat, but proprietary, hard to get, very unstructured data was a strong moat. But AI scrambled everything, right? I mean, a lot of the things that were hard are becoming easier. Even the line between public and proprietary data are kind of like shifting, because of all the things that are on the open web. And so we just had to focus on the things that didn't change, the things that didn't make easier, that were not easier. For us, it was like, I don't know, things that still made us strong were like, I don't know, the data that we had that not even the official sources had anymore because we crawled it back in the day, like the data that you can only have access through partnerships, institutional access. More importantly for us, it's the structuring and curation of data. I'm talking about like taxonomy, citational networks. I'm talking about cross-reference, and all those things. Like they actually make your moat more strong. Because it's exactly that kind of like clean, differentiated and trusted data that any AI agent will need to do anything serious, at least in our space, right? So.
Cool. Madhav, to you, let's talk a little bit about model dependency. Are you seeing any patterns, maybe poor choices around model dependency right now?
Yeah, so maybe I'll quickly do a 1-minute intro about Emergent again. So Emergent is a platform which lets people build apps. We allow non-technical users to ship production-ready apps. And behind the scenes, it's a platform which make these choices for the end users. We have 8 million users who have shipped 10 million apps now on the platform, right? And these are non-technical users, so they cannot make the right choice. What is the right model? Should it be GPT-5? Should it be Anthropic? Should it be Gemini? What should be the thinking level, medium? There are so many tweaks that you need to do to get the model to do the right thing. And so we have to make those choices actively on behalf of the users to make their apps come out well, right? So for example, for design, maybe you'll use Gemini, which has a very nice design sense. And for some other thinking efforts, you may have to tweak the thinking effort for, instead of using Gemini Flash, you may use Gemini Pro, which has a thinking budget, and it can improve the output quality significantly. So that's the kind of choice that you make as an agent harness. And that is what actually allows, and the way we are able to make those choices is we have data of all the customer apps that are being built, and we can see which model is doing well. So that is where the kind of the moat really comes from. Do you have the evals internally with which you can look at it and make the right choices for the customers?
Got it. It's kind of vantage point as a moat. Okay, interesting. Let's jump in and maybe get a little bit spicy again. I'm going to Madhav, come back this direction. So, in this audience, we have a lot of founders, and Michele, you made a great point. This is not easy, right? Everyone who is starting a company is doing so against the odds with courage, and so you have to find these ways to structurally advantage your business over time. So let's say you've got only enough resources to invest in one area, to build one moat, if you will. Where would you place your bet?
Yeah, I would say customers, as close to the customers you can get, because that is your real advantage. And essentially being closer to the customer allows you to, labs and other big companies will not have the focus to stay as close to the customers. So all the customer-related insight that you can drive is where you have the highest chance of success.
Yep, I would bet in building trust, at least in a space like ours, legal tech. Getting a wrong answer might mean someone loses their home, someone loses their freedom, it might be like a lawyer or even a judge that is sanctioned because he used a precedent that the AI invented. So, I mean, in a market like ours, trust, I think it's the only thing that it evolves, it scales faster than technology, right? It's the technology you will scale answers, you'll keep having better answers and faster answers, but only trust will scale decisions in the end, so yeah.
Cool.
You will probably uninvite me from this panel, but I don't believe in technical moats. So my recommendation for everyone who's starting right now is next 12 months, obsess on product market fit. If you don't get it in the next 12 months, make it your life mission to get product market fit. Everything else follows. You will start to hear from your customers what are the technical requirements. You will decide on what you're going to be great and what you're going to be using a vendor, what you're not going to be caring about. That's my philosophy.
I think mine aligns pretty closely with that. I think a startup's only moat is focus and the talent density that they bring to that focus. There's nothing else, and that's how we can defend against anyone else, because we can put even more weight behind that arrow than anyone else can.
Nice. All right, we're on to spicy topic number 2, and this is about where value actually sticks. So Simon, TurboPuffer is sitting kind of a layer below this AI app explosion. So why is enabling everyone else's margin in some ways more defensible as a moat than the application itself?
I think we want to be a competitive advantage to our customers, right? We want them to allow connecting more data to AI than any of the peers that they venture against in their field. And so I think we play in the market that we feel we're best served in. It happens to be in the infra realm. That's where there's the product market fit, there's the founder market fit, and the founder market fit for us is to build the dev tools for everyone else. So that's what we do, and we want the companies built on top of us to be the best ones that they can.
And is there a moment when those companies hit a certain level of scale where infra really becomes a meaningful part of that story? Do you help them through that journey?
I think we see companies get to us for different reasons. Some do it because they're spending too much on inference, because they put too much, they spend too much on just attention compute, and so they want to bring, they want to reduce that and do more of that at inference. Others come to us because they're blocked on product. So for example, Notion is one of our customers, right? They connect very large amounts of data to AI, and they started by just connecting, the Notion data to AI, but now they also connect all kind of third-party data because we were like kind of a massive reset in their economics. The way I think about it is very simple, right? We have to earn a return on top of the compute that we buy from you, and we try to bully you into making that as cheap as possible so that we can then charge a margin on top of that. But it means that our customers need to be able to earn hopefully an even greater margin on that than we can with the product they build on top of us. And so we just want to allow them to connect as much data as possible to these models, trillions and trillions of tokens that can't possibly fit in context.
Nice, great. Okay, Michele, Replit is sitting in this space where ideas become software. We all know AI is writing more and more code. You heard Sundar this morning say, up to 75% of code at Google is now written by AI. So it may not be intuitive for everyone to think that owning that user experience at a time when more code is generated by AI becomes the defensible thing. How does Replit think about kind of the evolution of the IDE in the code development space?
I think there's always been a cognitive dissonance between the fact that, yes, AI can generate a lot of code, and this very dystopian view that we're not going to be needing software engineers anymore. The truth is, especially in larger companies, the vast majority of time, even pre-AI, was not spent on writing code. It was spent on aligning people and deciding the requirements of a project, et cetera, et cetera. So part of that process has indeed become faster. But everything else, and especially the complexity of creating very advanced software, is still 100% there. So owning the entire software development lifecycle means that, especially for the kind of market that we are almost charting from the ground up, because we are really targeting every single knowledge worker in the world, we are training them on what's going to be the user experience on how you create software, which is not based at all on the last decades of how we created software in the world. So we're figuring it out as we go. Yes, models are improving, but also the user experience we offer is basically making progress on a daily basis. Owning that entire end-to-end means that, first of all, we know what our customers want. We listen to them on a daily basis, so we can really add every single bits and piece that they need for that experience straight into Replit. We're being like a one-stop solution. And I think this is probably the only defensible mode that companies like us will build over time. Yeah. And it's a combination of infrastructure, AI, user experience. It's basically what I was telling before. It's the real product market fit equation that makes a difference.
Responsiveness. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, Felipe, let's talk a little bit more about vertical SaaS. So why can't pick your favorite frontier model? I have mine. Show up in Brazil tomorrow and just do what you do?
I think people are still underestimating how much work has to sit on top of the model in a regulated, high-stakes market as ours. Of course, the labs will look at Brazilian law, and they will see a segment that the models already kind of know. And they're kind of right, the models have read Brazilian law, have read Brazilian case law. They can talk like a lawyer. They can write some things right. They can, write a motion that is plausible, But our main challenge at Just Brazil was to actually prove that a specialized, grounded AI would outperform the general purpose models, and these legal tasks. Because on the wrapper discussion, right, people think of specialization as wrappers, but they're not. It's us doing a lot of stuff, building on things that the models alone can't give you. For us, it's proprietary data, proprietary structuring, it's continuous evaluation by domain experts, it's feedback loop, tied with real professional use at scale, and for us, our specialized grounded AI, it outperforms all the general purpose models for more than 70% of the legal tasks that we have in Brazil. It hallucinates 50% less, which is in this market, it's a big thing, right? And actually, that's why we became the #1 case of legal AI adoption in the world. No, it's like over 1 million paying users from between like common citizens, you know, keeping tabs with their rights, lawyers in their daily practices, you know, and companies, institutions on high stakes decisions, and also, yeah, I mean, any company, you guys will continue to deliver like great models, you know, but there's so much work to make that output actually trustworthy on a courtroom, you know, on those big life-changing decisions. So yeah, that's why.
And I'm going to make this extra spicy. So if you look ahead, you know, 18, 24 months, do you have the same confidence that these models aren't going to continue just getting better at those specialized tasks?
Yeah, first, I actually have to have this, right? I mean, otherwise it's like, okay, life sucks and then we die, you know? It's like, why keep bothering, right? But yeah, I mean, like the things that I told you that makes the difference on the output, you know, like the proprietary stuff that we have, you know, the feedback loop of the domain experts, all the instructions that we have built over almost 20 years of you know, serving that market, you know, being built by people that actually understand the law. At least on our evaluation, that's not something that is going to go away anytime soon.
Cool. Okay, Madhav, your turn. We're going to talk a little bit about building a company. You know, these are all, again, founders building on top of models. And the models are changing all of the time. So what does a model-resilient company look like? And maybe, given the CTO, a little bit on the architecture, kind of some of the considerations.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I think you have to like build it not for like, so the wrapper word was used, right? So I think the main sort of answer here is that you should not be a wrapper in a way, like you have to go deep. So one of the things we did early on is that we build our infrastructure stack along with our agent harness, because your agent is only as good as the feedback that you give your agent, right? So that means your agent, we have built-in telemetry, we have built-in logging and all of that. So you want your agent to get like fast feedback, right? And along the way, all the trajectories that you are doing for all your agent harness is getting recorded, and you're building a continuous evals, and then you're able to tell model A versus model B, right? And the models are shipping up very fast, right? So you're getting a new model every few months. And so how do you decide in production which model to switch to and which is the right model for your choice? So we are able to do that fairly autonomously by running our evals in the background, making sure all the feedback that we are capturing on the agent side, on the logging side is captured along the way. So you have to kind of like build the entire harness well. It has to scale to the number of users you have on the platform and scale to the your use case. So you have to basically build it pretty deep structure for you to extract most juice out of the models. Because I think like there is a misconception here that where people think that, hey, this is a smart model, everybody can extract the same amount of intelligence out of those models. But if you don't bring in the right sort of feedback loops back to the model, you'll probably not be able to utilize the level of intelligence available to you as a company.
And you talked about the sort of autonomous, background comparisons happening. Presumably there was a moment where you had to make a decision. Right. Do I spend engineering time on building that process, or do I focus on delivering value? How did you make those trade-off decisions?
I think so. So we started Emergent in Y Combinator summer 24, and like first 6 months of our startup, we were just building a research product, our agent harness for developers. And then we found out that, hey, these agents are so good at producing like production-ready code, we can actually create an application around it and give it to prosumers and consumers. And that's when we shipped Emergent. And just 9 months since launch, we are at 100 million in run rate revenue. Over 8.5 million users have built 10 million apps. And so we are growing really fast. And a lot of people look at Emergent as a vibe coding platform, but what they don't see is the 6 months of research work we did behind the scenes to make the agent work so well in practice, right? So you have to spend the research and engineering to make that happen.
Yeah. Great point. All right, I'm going to keep it moving. We're going to talk a little bit now about looking forward. We spent a little bit of time on the history. So let's fast forward 18 months. Like pretend you can see into the future. I don't know if anyone knows what 18 months from now looks like. I certainly don't, other than more gray hair. So assume now there's not a bunch of humans clicking a bunch of buttons. Like agent, it's the agent gone wild scenario. There's thousands, millions maybe, of these autonomous agents making decisions. We're going to do a rapid fire round. I'm going to do the 4 questions, and then you guys tell me the answer. What's going to break first? So Simon, what breaks in infrastructure? Michele, what's going to break in the UX? Felipe, thinking about compliance, what might break when agents are everywhere? And Madhav in roadmap planning. And then I'm going to ask the follow-up question. Do any of these breakpoints create a great startup opportunity? So I'll start with you, Simon.
You guys don't make enough CPUs and NVMEs available in the clouds.
Easy.
Ouch.
It's already happening.
Working on it.
No, but I mean it, right? Like there's a massive amount now of CPUs consumed as well, right? That the bottleneck is moving as there's more practicing, because the practicing is happening on the CPUs, and I think that could be a wake-up call for a lot of startups over the next 18 months. That's probably
power is the answer.
I mean, power is also scarce now, right? But the GPUs use more of it than the CPUs.
UX-wise, I think the UIs that we know today will slowly start to disappear, and practically we will have to train everyone to go through chatbots or like natural language interactions with agents. I think it's a blessing and a curse, but I'm going to give the rest of the answer after, right? Okay. I'm gonna
no, you can give it. You keep going.
Well, think about it. The best feature of a chat interface and the worst one is very friendly. You know exactly how to interact with it, but the discoverability is awful. You don't know what the product does. So if you're just interacting with an agent, you need to hope that on the receiving end, the agent has the capability they're hoping for, which is not always the case. So like Rapid is very specific on app creation and accomplishing certain tasks, and you go to Gemini and it gets some other work done. So it's amazing as a universal interface, but at the same time, it's going to be very hard to train people what a certain product can do.
Great.
Well, in compliance, I think like everything breaks, right? Everything, because I mean, if you think about every piece of regulation, it assumes that it's a human at the center of an act. So it's like it's a human practicing, it's a human consenting, it's a human accountable for, and this whole logic goes away with autonomous AI agents, So yeah.
More work for you.
Yeah. Or hopefully, and I think there's it might be an opportunity on this infrastructure layer, on this AI economy world where you can actually answer, who actually did this, with what authority, and who is responsible for it. Every regulated market will definitely need this.
Yeah, I think I would just say that humans are going to become bottlenecked. If agents have gone wild, human is the bottleneck where the decision making has to happen through humans, right? And so I think there is an opportunity to think, like for example, in code generation, if you generate too much code, who reviews that code, right? So code review becomes a bottleneck. Likewise, if a lot of features are getting built, how do you bring chaos to this madness? I think there is an opportunity to build like AI PMs, or more like the higher order structures of the organizations, which haven't been touched yet in this space.
All right. Any other opportunities that might pop up before we move on?
A lot of products will change. They will be completely rethought from the ground up because of AI. I don't think we have seen this yet, almost at all. Like we see new products popping up here and there, but the vast majority of productivity software that I think all of you in this room spend many hours a week on will be rethought from the ground up.
What do you think the signals will be indicating it's time for these to effectively transfer?
I think it's reliability. If you can get a task fully accomplished with a certain level of reliability, and you know that you don't have to spend time anymore in front of your CRM, your ERP, anything else that you need in an enterprise setting, but an agent can just go and get the job done. Why would you spend any more time in front of the product? You literally wake up in the morning, create a list of tasks you want to accomplish, dispatch to your agents, and spend the rest of the time doing creative work. Yeah. It's happening soon. That's my prediction.
I think as the bottleneck moves from into CPUs and into actually the applied workloads, I think efficiency is going to be, which is already the case, but even more so because you can't just turn dollars into more work anymore, right? There's like constraints on power and fabs and everything else, and so the efficiency of the software becomes a lot more important, right? Once that like Turbo Puffer, right, where you only keep enough in object storage or NVMe or DRAM exactly how much you need, I think is a great opportunity for a lot of startups to just build more performance stuff. Right now, we're not doing that, right? We're in the era of just like throwing as many dollars at the wall as we possibly can, but we are close to the wall.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, on to topic number 4. We're going to talk about making bets. So, hypothetical scenario, you're starting a company today. Today's your day. Where do you focus the highest conviction kind of moat in this AI world for building in the next 24 months? You can't pick your existing moat.
Then I have no answer.
Because that's everything we think about on a daily basis. That's how wide is my aperture today,
Can I start? Yeah, sure. Honestly, one of the best modes I can think of right now is free Google Cloud credits. Simon.
Are you asking for more on stage? Give him more credits.
Rapid too, that will help too. Rapid credits would also help.
All right.
I mean, jokes aside, Simon talked about this. Access to AI infrastructure and capacity, it kind of it matters more than we would like to admit here on the table. But for the entrepreneurs, I would just say find a market where the mistakes matter. Where mistakes have real hard consequences. Build a trust around your product, around your AI, around your service. And just go do the hard work. The big labs will not even realize how hard it is, until you're already way on the front.
I would say that if there are aspirational founders in the room, I would encourage people to look far away from anything that's venture-backed and just think about what opportunities that happen that could not be venture-backed, right? There are certain opportunities I think all the ones that we have here where you have to run, and if you do not do it at the fastest possible pace, you will get crushed. But there's lots of opportunities out there that if you showered with 100 million in venture-backed company, these companies are going to implode. But there's lots of great companies that could earn a couple million in revenue, flatten out, and have a great time that are currently getting venture backed and are going to get smoked, and by companies like this that can do it at lower margins than anyone else. I think a lot of opportunities for smaller ergonomics that people will pay for are hiding in the seams there.
Build them on Replit, of course. Shameless plug.
Yeah, it's way easier now to build those than it ever was. But I feel like the glamour of the world and these the weird high status that this part of the world places on raising lots of money means that's what people does instead of potentially creating great businesses that are not suitable for a certain type of venture.
Back to solving real problems.
I've been holding a strong belief in the last few years, which is connected to a question I think you asked Felipe before. You were asking him, what happens if 2 years from now models are going to be so powerful that they replace part of the job that you're doing? So what I want to tell to any new founder in the room is expect that to happen. It has happened basically since LLMs came out, and they probably always exceeded our expectations. No matter if you are a practitioner, no matter if you come from a research background, I was literally training LLMs until a few years ago at Google, and I think it was hard for all of us to imagine how much powerful they would have become today. So start from that expectations. They're going to be able to do way more. The truth is, all of us have more work to do now than we had 12 months ago. Because the moment this technology is more powerful, it means that your product has way more scope than it had before. So if you're starting from today, try to imagine this is where models are going to be a year from now, 2 years from now. What kind of insanely crazy product can I build because of that? Like, I don't have the luxury today anymore because now I'm more on a relatively strict roadmap that has to move really fast, as someone was saying, but people know what we build and we're just going to evolve over that. If I was starting from scratch, I would come up with the craziest possible idea. I think that's what's fun to be like a 0 to 1 founder.
One other thing on the startups and moats that I think would be interesting to add is like, I think I had this moment in November, December-ish of last year where it's like, okay, now someone could build TurboPuffer a lot faster than we were able to build it. And there's probably a lot of people in this room and on this panel too that think like, wow, like this startup, you know, it took me like a summer and change to build the first version of TurboPuffer, and like it was not even close to as good as the one that we have now. And so some people are like, well, can't you spin up a competitor now in 6 months? You can, but the thing is that, you know, they're compounding from zero. I'm compounding from a code base and a customer base that's much further ahead of that. And so I think that's a really important point, but it's also a point of like, if you are not very good at adopting these tools and you're not compounding very fast on whatever it is you have now, like you will get, again, smoked by someone who compounds from zero at a much faster rates, right? Exponentials are absolutely, you know, we're all getting like reintroduced to exponentials here, right? Of these companies that are growing at 30 to 60% month over month, right? And it goes very, very fast, very quickly. It looks slow for a little bit, and then it completely spirals out of control. And so that will happen to people if they are not very good at adopting these tools.
I like it. Any shiny objects that you would say, you talked about taking other people's money as one of them. Any shiny objects you would tell entrepreneurs, hey, this might look like an attractive place to focus now, but maybe isn't the most defensible?
Please. I'm already
just going to joke that don't do legal tech.
Legal tech. I was about to say that.
There's like this big dominant player over there. No, they're pretty innovative. You can't compete with those guys. You know, like
I think that the framework that I use, but this is like a very like infra framework, is that I think great businesses either have a lot of flow or they have a lot of state. And you know, I grew up working at Shopify, right? And Shopify as a business has a lot of state and a lot of workflow. Like that's a really good business. And I think the businesses on these panels have both a lot of state and a lot of workflow. Actually, TurboPuffer has the least workflow probably of all of the businesses up here, but we have a lot of state to make up for it. And so that's a framework that I always run through that's very simple, especially for those that are building dev tools of, do you have a lot of state? Do you have a lot of workflow? If you have neither of those things, it's probably going to be very, very easy to switch away. And I think that there are some categories right now that have a lot of momentum and a lot of startups and a lot of interesting benchmarks and so on that don't have a lot of state and they don't have a lot of workflows. Those will just become commoditized, right? Like you guys will release some product, right? Like and like it will become commoditized. So that's a really useful way to think through it, I think.
Yeah, I would also just say that like don't bet against model improvements, right? So you can just like, you know, you should always assume that model is going to keep improving, and how can your startup align in that direction, that you're actually happy that model is improving. So if that is happening, then you're on the right track.
Okay, I'm going to go off script for the last question. This is your chance to be a little bit vulnerable. I've painted a rosy picture of all of your businesses and the perfect defensible moats over time, but what are the things that you're maybe keeping you up at night, or the areas that you think, hey, I should spend more time?
I've never seen things moving so fast. That is the scariest thing ever. It's the biggest possible opportunity. The tools that we have in our hands, as someone was saying, are unprecedented in terms of power. It also means that if you fall asleep for a second or you make a couple of wrong strategical choices in front of you, it's going to be really hard to recover. There's quite a bit of copying happening in the space as well. So it's hard to keep compounding at the rate that the top companies are doing.
I like that thread. Like, to add on to that, I think I was talking to someone about this the other day of like, 10 years ago, you'd have someone spend like 3 weeks to spin up a MySQL cluster and it was fine. Now it's like, you could never dream of that. Like you would just go buy that or like spin it up in like a few hours, because who has time to do anything that takes 3 weeks anymore? Right? That's like an insane timeline, right? Like, and I think that the cost of getting things wrong, for probably the people here were like, overthinking every decision, because if we get something wrong on the product roadmap, it's existential for a startup. that I would say that keeps me up. The cost of being wrong right now has just more opportunity cost than it ever has. I think about how our first customers were Cursor and Notion, and they used every single line of code in the product because we happened to not be wrong, right, about the things that they needed, and we only implemented them when they were like right there. And so I think about that a lot in how we develop product and make every other decision. And so I think product is like front and center now of every company.
I would say definitely competition. Like in our case, like I said, we've been in the market for a while, and competition right now is like we're facing competition from ChatGPT and the tech-savvy lawyer who vibe coded a tool using Replit, and now it's it's getting a few clients, and this is like. It's a set of very different competitors that we are not used to, to have, like on the top of the pyramid and on the bottom, and that's something that it's also good, right? It keeps us like also fast, like also trying to move faster, and so but it's definitely something that keeps us up at night, yeah.
Yeah, for us, it's still sort of like customer issues because like we allow people to build production-ready apps, and so their ambitions have grown up. So like they just keep pushing us forward. What they were able to do like 6 months back, now they're able to do even bolder apps. And so we are just like trying to catch up to their own ambition because they said, hey, I don't need developers anymore. I can build this on Emergent, right? So just keeping up with their ambition.
All right, I'm going to bring this home just to make this practical. So if you remember anything, it's about the emote and no, it's about intelligence alone is not going to be a moat. Models are going to continue to improve. I actually love the focus on the product market fit and being responsive to customers. Like this is something that will be true in any business. If the closer you are to the customer's use case, the better you can deliver value, which compounds into a structural moat over time. So I hope all of you found opportunities to think about your businesses in ways that you can bring new structural advantages to your business that will compound over time. So in closing, huge thank you to the panelists. I think we tried to keep it as spicy as possible. I appreciate the candid responses. Last thing for the folks, if you haven't seen the Future of AI report, unbelievable amount of deep insights, so take a quick scan, have a read, and thank you so much for joining.